Доброе утро.
Good morning to all the
Доброго времени суток
participants
всем участникам международного
of this
онлайн-марафона,
marathon. We are doing everything for the
посвященного
benefit
чтению
of the
Священных
world. We also
Писаний.
the
И
part
мы
of
это
this
делаем на
world,
благо мира.
and the
Мы
time
также часть этого
comes.
мира.
This is a time of very big
И пришло
changes,
время,
the
удивительное
time
время,
of
время великих перемен,
very important
время
things.
каких-то
The
свершений.
something new
Люди
will
долго
come,
ждут
and this new comes if
чего-то
we
нового.
bring this new
И это новое
in
оно
our
произойдет,
life,
когда мы
when we
что-то новое
arrange
принесем в
something in
свою
our
жизнь
life,
сами. То есть что-то новое организуем в
accepting
своей судьбе в виде
spiritual
какой-то
practicing,
практики
if we,
духовной,
even if
если мы
we
хотим
just want to be
поднять свой
fame,
духовный потенциал,
rich, and
если
so
мы
on.
хотим просто
Any
здесь стать
way we
счастливыми,
should
богатыми,
do something new in our
знаменитыми,
life to make a
все
new
равно нужно что-то
decision,
новое внутри,
and such
сначала поменять решение, как минимум принять,
intelligence
что я
comes,
буду
and
делать
the
в этом
person
направлении.
become very
И
happy.
так включается
Just
функция
waiting
разума, и
for
человек
something that
становится
something new
счастливым.
comes. It's
Так
and
просто ждать,
we are
что
not
что-то новое
getting, and then
произойдет,
maybe later we will get
и
into
мы потом
it.
как-нибудь
It's something not
вклинимся в
very
это, но это не совсем.
clever.
Для
God
разумных
said
людей,
if
разумные
we
люди
help
пытаются также
ourselves,
прилагать усилия.
I help.
Как говорится, Бог помогает тому, кто помогает себе. И у нас сегодня
We have a second day
второй
of
день
reading
чтения
Srimad
Srimad Bhagavatam.
We
Мы вчера прочитали первую
finished with the
песню,
first
вторую начали,
canto,
дошли
and
до 8 главы, где царь Парикшит задает
we
вопросы своему духовному учителю.
started
И
a
это
second
важная часть,
canto
важный
about the
элемент
questions of
практики
Maharaja
духовной, когда
Parikshit. It's very important topic
ученик
when a disciple
чувствует себя учеником,
understand himself as a
когда задает вопросы.
disciple. He
Просто в
have
это время
questions
он
in his
должен
heart,
понимать, что его
and he
положение
understand his position,
должно быть
and
очень
he
смиренным.
should be very submissive.
То есть внимательность должна быть
It's
повышенная.
very
В это
important to
время
be
в уме
very
должен быть
attentive,
порядок, успокоение должно
peaceful
быть, потому что
when we are
сейчас он
inquiring
получит,
for
он будет
spiritual
отвечать.
master.
Я должен
And
очень
these
внимательно
disciples
слушать
should
и пытаться
try to
понять
understand
сказанное,
what is
для чего, что
speaking
потом
his spiritual
применить это на
master,
практике.
then
Это важно
to
знать.
practice
Я
it.
сейчас буду это
We
слушать
should
не для
understand that
развлечения.
we shouldn't just
Я сейчас
listen
не
for
развлекаюсь так, как
entertainment,
думает ученик.
or I'm
Я
spent
сейчас
the time
трачу
of my
время духовного учителя.
spiritual master, and I should
Это в первую
understand that
очередь.
I
То
will
есть я
practice
сейчас,
it what he says.
другими словами, как будто бы занимаю
I
его время
time
тем, что в принципе уже, и так
he
понятно. Но духовный учитель
spiritual master
напоминает
just
больше.
remind
Напоминает, он
us,
пробуждает душу.
remind
Что в
our
душе все эти
soul what
знания уже есть, он
it
просто
has to do.
занимается
The
пробуждением ученика. И ученик должен
disciple should
понимать, что
understand
я
that he
очень внимательно
should
должен слушать, чтобы потом
listen very attentive
эти знания
to
применить на
satisfy
практике и
his
удовлетворить
spiritual
этого
master by
духовного
doing
учителя,
something
обрадовать его,
practical,
что я не просто пришел, занимал время,
following the
позадавал
answers
вопросы,
of
якобы
spiritual
умные,
master.
ученические, и на этом
And
ограничиться. Буду ходить теперь
we
думать,
shouldn't think
вот
that,
я
oh,
уже
I
это
know
знаю, я
it,
это
I know
знаю.
that.
А теперь начинай делать.
No,
Вот
spiritual
что
master want
духовный
from
учитель
us
от нас.
that we should
И вот сейчас
practice
как
all
раз
this knowledge in our life. And now
Шукадева
we have
Госвами будет
Shukadeva
отвечать
Goswami,
на
who is
вопросы
answering the
своего
questions
ученика.
of his disciple.
Давайте приготовимся. Сегодня целый
It's
день
very
будет похоже
important
вопросов.
topic.
Раз
It
такая
means
тема у нас начинается,
that
говорится,
the
как
whole day
начнете день, так
will
он здесь и
be
будет
concerning
протекать.
this inquiring.
Сегодня можно задавать вопросы, не просто в эфире, в
You
жизни
can
своей.
ask questions not
Сами себе
only
задавайте вопросы,
here, but
ищите
also
ответы
you can
в
ask
священных
yourself,
писаниях, у
you
святых
can ask your
людей, у
spiritual
духовного
master, you
учителя,
can ask your
наставника. И
counselors,
потом со временем,
and
со
then
временем
later everything
все
will be
откроется. Все
revealed.
откроется.
Let's pray.
Давайте прочитаем благоприятные молитвы. Ом намо Бхагавате Васудевая. Ом намо Бхагавате Васудевая. Ом намо Бхагавате Васудевая. Нараяна намаскритям нарам чива наротама. Девим Сарасватим Ясам Датуджая Мудирает. Нашта Праешва Бхадришу Нитя Бхагавата Севая. Бхагаватью Тамашлоке Бхактир Бхавати Найштики.
Srimad Bhagavatam in the translation of Bhaktivedanta Swami Second canto, Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 9, answers by citing the Lord's version. Text. Deva Goswami said, O king, unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul in pure consciousness with the material body. That relationship is just like a dreamer seeing his own body working. The illusion living entity appears in so many forms offered by the external energy of the Lord. While enjoying the modes of material nature, the encaged living entity misconceives thinking in terms of I and mine. The entity becomes situated in his constitutional glory and begins to enjoy this beyond time and material energy. He at once gives up the two misconceptions of life, I and mine, and thus becomes manifested as the pure self. O king, the person of God had been very much pleased with Lord Brahma because of his notive penance in Bhakti Yoga, presented his eternal and transcendental form before Brahma. And that is the objective goal for purifying the conditioned soul. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat, and while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. While engaged in thinking in the water, Brahmaji heard twice from nearby two syllables joined together. One of the syllables was taken from the 16th and the other from the 21st of the Sparsha alphabets. Both joined to become the wealth of the renounced order of life. When he heard the sound, he tried to find the speaker, searching on all sides. When he was unable to find anyone besides himself, he thought it down on his lotus seat firmly and give his attention to the of penance, and he was instructed. Lord Brahma underwent penances for 1,000 years by the calculations of the demigods. He heard this transcendental vibration from the sky, and he accepts divine. Thus he controlled his mind and sense, and the penances he executed were a great lesson for the living entities, known as the greatest of all ascetics. The personality of God had been thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode, Vaikuntha, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by realized persons freed from all kinds of miseries and fear of illusory existence. In that personal abode of the Lord, the material modes of ignorance and passion do not prevail, nor is there any of their influence in goodness. There is no predominance of the. So what to speak of the illusory external energy? It cannot enter that region.
И избавился от страданий и страхов иллюзорного бытия. На эту обитель Господа не распространяется влияние материальных гун, невежества и страсти. Низшие гуны никогда не
without discrimination, both the demigods and the demons worship the Lord as devotees.
Не властно даже время, не говоря уже об
The
иллюзорной
inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets are described as having a glowing sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers, their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features very attractive. They are just the age of growing youth. They all have 4 hands, nicely decorated with pearl necklaces with ornamental medallions, and they all appear to be effulgent. Some of them are effulgent like coral and diamond in complexion and having garlands on their heads, blooming like lotus flowers, and some wear earrings. The Vaikunha planets are also surrounded by various airplanes, all glowing and brilliantly situated. These airplanes belong to the great Mahatmas or devotees of the Lord. The ladies are as beautiful as lightning because of their celestial complexions, and all these combined together appear just like the sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. The goddess of fortune, in her transcendental form, is engaged in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet, and being moved by the followers of spring, she is not only engaged in variegated pleasure, service to the Lord, along with her constant compassions, but is also engaged in singing the glories of the Lord's activities. The Lord Brahma saw in the Vaikuntha planets the personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the entire devotee community, the Lord of the goddess of fortune, the Lord of all sacrifices, and the Lord of the universe, and who is served by the foremost servitors like Nanda, Sunanda, Prabhala, and Arhana, his immediate associates. The personality of Godhead seen leaning favorably towards his loving servitors. His very sight, intoxicating and attractive, appeared to be very much satisfied. He had a smiling face decorated with an enchanting reddish hue. He was dressed in yellow robes and wore earrings and a helmet on his head. He had 4 hands, and his chest was marked with the lines of the goddess of fortune. The Lord was seated on his throne and was surrounded by different energies like the 4, the 16, the 5, and the 6 natural opulences, along with other insignificant energies of the temporary character, but he was the factual Supreme Lord enjoying his own abode. Lord Brahma, thus seeing the personality of Godhead in his fullness, was overwhelmed with joy within his heart, and thus in full transcendental love and ecstasy, his eyes filled with tears of love, he thus bowed down before the Lord. That is the way of the highest perfection for the living being, Paramahamsa. And seeing Brahma present before him, the Lord accepted him as worthy to create living beings to be controlled as he desired, and thus being much satisfied with him. The Lord shook hands with Brahma and, slightly smiling, addresses him thus. The beautiful personality of God addressed Lord Brahma. O Brahma, impregnated with the Vedas, I am very much pleased with your long accumulated penance with the desire for creation. Hardly am I pleased with pseudo-mystics. I wish you good luck. O Brahma, you may ask from me, the giver of all benedictions, all that you may desire. You may know that the ultimate benediction as the result of all penances is to see me by realization. The highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abode, and this has been possible because of your submissive attitude in the performance of severe penance according to order. O sinless Brahma, you may know from me that it was I who first ordered you to undergo penance when you were perplexed in your duty. Such penance is my heart and soul, and therefore penance and I are not different. I create this cosmos by such penance, I maintain it by the same energy, and I withdraw it all by the same energy. Therefore, the potency is penance only. Lord Brahma said, O personality of Godhead, you are situated in every living entity's heart as the Supreme Director, and therefore you are aware of all endeavors by your superior intelligence, without any hindrance whatsoever. In spite of that, my Lord, I am praying to you to kindly fulfill my desire. May I please be informed how, in spite of your transcendental form, you assume the mundane form, although you have no such form at all. And please inform me how you, by your own self, manifest different energies for annihilation, generation, acceptance, and maintenance by combination and permutation. O Master of all energies, please tell me philosophically all about them. You play like a spider that carries itself by its own energy, and your determination is infallible. Please tell me so that I may be taught in the matter by the instruction of the personality of Godhead, and may thus act instrumentally to generate living entities without being conditioned by such activities. O my Lord, the unborn, you have shaken hands with me just as a friend does with a friend, as if equal in position. I shall be engaged in the creation of different types of living entities, and I shall be occupied in your service. I shall have no perturbation, but I pray that all this may not give rise to pride as if I were the supreme. The personality of God has said, knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential, and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. All of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization of causeless mercy. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it is my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. O Brahma, please now know that the universal enter the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. O Brahma, just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind, and no pride will disturb you, neither in the partial nor in the final devastation. Shukadeva Goswami said to Maharaja Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, after being seen in his transcendental form instructing Brahmaji, the leader of the living entities, disappeared. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahma, with the folded hands, began to recreate the universe full with living entities as it was previously. Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma situated himself in act of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. Narada, the most dear of the inheritor sons of Brahma, always ready to serve his father, strictly followed the instructions of his father by his mannerly behavior, meekness, and self-control. Narada very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu, the master of all energies. For Narada was the greatest of all and greatest of all devotees, O king. The great sage Narada also inquired in detail from his father Brahma, the great-grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. Thereupon the supplementary Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described by the personality of Godhead and which is characteristic, was told with satisfaction by the father Brahma to his son Narada. In succession, O king, the great sage Narada instructed Srimad Bhagavatam unto the unlimitedly powerful Vyasadeva, who meditated in devotional service upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, on the bank of the river Saraswati. O king, your questions as to how the universe became manifested from the gigantic form of the Personality of Godhead, as well as other questions, I shall answer in detail by explanation of the 4 verses already mentioned. The end of the chapter. Chapter 10. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, in the Srimad Bhagavatam there are 10 divisions of statements regarding the following: the creation of the universe, sub-creation, planetary system, protection by the Lord, the creative impetus, the change of Manus, the signs of God, returning home, back to Godhead, liberation, and the summum bonum. To isolate the transcendence of the summum bonum, the symptoms of the rest are described sometimes by Vedic inference, sometimes by direct explanation, and sometimes by summary explanations given by the great sages. The elementary creation of 16 items of matter, namely the 5 elements fire, water, land, air, and sky, sound, form, taste, smell, touch, and the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and mind, is known as a sarga, whereas a subsequent resultant interaction of the modes of material nature is called visarga. The right situation for the living entities is to obey the laws of the Lord and thus be in perfect peace of mind under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Manus and their lords are meant to give right direction in life. The impetus for activity is the desire for fruitive folk. The signs of God describe the incarnations of the personality of Godhead and his different activities together with the activities of his great devotees. The merging of the living entity along with the conditional living tendency with the mystic line down of the Mahavishnu is called the winding up of the cosmic manifestation. Liberation is the permanent situation of the form of the living entity after he gives up the changeable, gross, and subtle material bodies. The Supreme One, who is celebrated as the Supreme Being or the Supreme Soul, is the supreme source of the cosmic manifestation as well as its reservoir and winding up, supreme fount-hand, the absolute truth. The individual person possessing different instruments of senses is called the Adhyatmic person, and the individual controlling deity of the senses is called Adhidaivic. The embodiment seen on the eyeballs is called the Adhibhautic person. All 3 of the above-mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another is not understood, but the Supreme Being who sees every one of them as the shelter of the shelter is independent of all, and therefore he is the supreme shelter. After separating the different universes, the gigantic universal form of the Lord Mahavishnu, which came out of the coastal ocean, the place of appearance, For the first
называется
Purusha Avatara
архибаутиком.
entered into each
Все
of the
три
separate
упомянутые выше
universes,
категории живых
desiring to
существ
lie on the
взаимосвязаны,
created transcendental water,
взаимозависимы.
Garbhadaka.
Отсутствие одного из них делает другого невосприимчивым,
That
невоспринимаемым.
Supreme Person is not
Но
impersonal
Господь
and
видит
therefore is
каждого из них,
distinctively a
ибо
Nara,
Он не
or
зависит
person
ни от
term.
кого.
For the
Поэтому Он
transcendental water
является
created from the
последним
Supreme Nara
прибежищем всего
is known as
сущего.
Nara, and
Отделив
because he
вселенные друг
lies
от
down
друга,
on that water,
гигантская
he is
вселенская форма Господа
known as
Махавишну,
Narayana.
вышедшая из
One should
причинного океана,
definitely know
место
that all
появления на
material
свет первого
ingredients,
Пурушаватары,
activities, time, and
вошла в
modes,
каждую из
and the
них,
living entities
желая
who are meant to enjoy them all
возлечь
exist by his mercy only, and as soon as he does not care for them, everything becomes
на
non-existent.
трансцендентные воды сотворенного ей океана, Гарбхадака.
The Lord, while lying on
Всевышний
his
не
bed of
безличен.
mystic
Он,
slumber,
безусловно,
generated the
Нара,
seminal
личность.
symbol golden
Поэтому
in
сотворенные
hue
Верховным Нарой
through external
трансцендентные
energy
воды
out of his
называют
desire
Нарой,
to
а
manifest
его
varieties of living
возлежащего на
entities
этих
from
водах
himself alone. Just hear
величают
from me how
Нараяной.
the potency of his
Необходимо
lordship
твердо знать,
divides one into
что
three, all the
материальные
controlling
компоненты
entities,
творения,
their
деятельность,
controlled
время,
entities,
гуны,
and the
а
material
также живые
bodies in the manner
существа, созданные,
mentioned
чтобы
above.
наслаждаться всем этим, существуют только по
From
милости
the state
Господа,
within the
и как
transcendental
только
body
Он
of the manifesting
перестает
Mahavishnu,
заботиться о них,
sense energy,
все это
mental
уходит в
force, and
небытие.
bodily strengths are all
Возлежа на ложе
generated,
мистического
as well
сна,
as the sum
Господь,
total of the
движимый желанием
fountainhead of the total
проявить из
living
себя
force.
одного
As the
все
followers of a
разнообразие
king
живых
follows
существ,
their
с
lord,
помощью своей внешней
similarly, when
энергии
the total
породил
energy
символ
is in motion,
семени
all other living
золотистого цвета.
entities move, and when the
Услышь же от
total energy
меня, каким
stops
образом
endeavoring,
энергия
all other
Верховного
living entities
Повелителя
stop sensual
разделяет
activities.
едино на три вида экспансий,
The
описанных
living
выше.
force, being
Властвующие
agitated by
существа,
the Virat Purusha,
подвластные
generated
существа
hunger
и
and thirst,
материальные
and when
тела.
he desired to drink and eat,
Из неба,
the
которое
mouth
находится в
opened.
трансцендентном теле,
From the mouth,
проявляющийся
palate became
Махавишну,
manifested, and
возникли
thereupon the
энергия
tongue was
чувств,
also
сила
generated.
ума,
After this,
физическая
all the
сила, а
different
также
tastes came
источник
into
совокупной
existence, so
жизненной
that the
энергии.
tongue can relish them.
Как царская
When the
свита
Supreme
повсюду следует
desired to speak
за своим
speeches,
повелителем, так и все живые
vibrating mouth,
существа
then the
движутся,
controlling
когда
deity fire was
находится в
generated from the
движении
mouth.
совокупная
But
энергия.
when he was lying
Но
in the
стоит
water, all
совокупной
these
энергии
functions
перестать
remained
действовать,
suspended.
как деятельность чувств всех
Thereafter,
живых
when the
существ
Supreme
тотчас
Purusha desired to
прекращается.
smell odor,
Жизненная
the
сила,
nostrils and
возбужденная
respiration were
Вират-Пурушей,
generated.
породила
The
голод
nasal
и жажду.
instrument
И когда
and
он захотел
odors came
есть
into
и пить,
existence, and the
открылся
controlling
рот.
deity of air carrying
Из его
smell
рта
also became
возникло небо,
manifested.
а вслед за
Thus,
ним
when
язык,
everything
после
existed
чего
in
появились
darkness, the Lord desired
различные
to see
вкусы,
himself and all that
чтобы
was
язык
created.
мог
Then the
наслаждаться ими.
eyes, the
Когда Всевышний
illuminating God's
пожелал
Son, and
говорить, из его рта
power of
вышел
vision,
звук.
and the
Затем
object of
изо
sight
рта
all became
появилось
manifested.
божество,
By
управляющее
development of
огнем.
the desire of the great
Однако пока
sages
он
to know,
лежал
the
на
ears,
воде,
the power of
все эти
hearing,
функции
the
находились
controlling
в
deity of
бездействии.
hearing, and the objects
Затем,
of
когда
hearing
Верховный
became
Пуруша
manifested. The
пожелал
great sages
вдохнуть запах,
desired to hear about
возникли
the self.
ноздри и дыхание, появился
When
носовой
there
аппарат
was a
и
desire to
ароматы.
perceive the
Вместе с
physical
этим на свет
characteristics of
появилось
matter, such
божество,
as softness,
повелевающее
hardness,
воздухом,
warmth,
который
cold,
переносит
lightness,
запахи.
and heaviness, the
Творение
background of
было погружено во
sensation,
tьму,
the
и
skin
когда
pores,
Господь пожелал
the
увидеть
hairs
себя
on the
и
body,
все
and their
сотворенное им,
controlling
возникли
deities,
глаза,
the trees were
излучающий свет,
generated.
Бог
Within
Солнца.
and outside the
Зрение
skin
и
is
объект
a
зрения.
covering of air,
Когда
through
в
which
великих
sense
мудрецах
perception
проснулась
became
жажда знания,
prominent.
на свет появились
Thereafter,
уши,
when the
слух,
Supreme Person
божество,
desired to
отвечающее за
perform
слух
varieties of
и
work,
объекты
the two
слуха.
hands and their controlling
Великие
strength
мудрецы
and
хотели
interest the
услышать в
demigod
душе.
in air manifested,
Желание
as also the
воспринимать
acts
такие
dependent
физические
on both
свойства
the hands
материи,
and the
как
demigods.
мягкость, твердость, тепло,
Thereupon,
холод,
because of his
легкость и
desiring to
тяжесть,
control movement, his
привело к
legs became
возникновению
manifested,
осязания
and from the leg the
кожи,
controlling deity
пор на коже,
named Vishnu was
волос на теле
generated. By
и
his
божеств,
personal
управляющих
supervision
ими,
of this act, all varieties
деревьев.
of human being are
С обеих
busily
сторон
engaged in
кожи находится
beautiful occupational sacrifice.
слой воздуха,
Thereupon,
который
for
отвечает
sexual
за
pleasure,
осязание.
begetting offspring,
После
and
этого,
tasting
когда он,
heavenly
Верховная
nectar, the Lord
Личность,
developed the genitals,
пожелал
and thus
заняться
there is
различными
the
видами
genital organ and its
деятельности,
controlling
возникли
deity, the
две руки,
Prajapati. The object of
присущая им
sexual
сила
pleasure and the
полубог
controlling
рая
deity
Идра,
are
а
under
также
the control
деятельность,
of the genitals
осуществляемая
of
руками
Lord.
и этим полубогом.
Thereafter, when
Затем он
he desired
захотел
of
двигаться, и тогда у
eatables,
него
the
появились
evacuating
ноги,
whole
а из
anus
ног
and
возникло
the sensory
управляющее божество
organ
Вишну. Под его
thereof
непосредственным
developed
наблюдением
along with the
самые
controlling deity
разные люди
Mitra.
совершают предписанные
The
им
sensory organ and the
жертвоприношения,
evacuating
вслед за
substance
тем,
are
чтобы
both
испытывать
under the shelter of
эротические
the controlling
наслаждения,
deity.
производить на
Thereafter,
свет
when he
потомство
desired to
и
move from
вкушать
one body
райский
to
нектар,
another, the
Господь
navel
создал
and the air
гениталии.
of departure
Так возник
and
детородный
death
орган и
were
божество, управляющее им,
combinedly
Праджапати.
created. The navel
Объект
is
полового
the
наслаждения
shelter for
и
both, namely
управляющее им
death and the
божество находятся
separated
под
force.
контролем гениталий Господа.
When there was a
Затем,
desire to
когда
have
он
food and
пожелал
drink,
вывести
the
остатки
abdomen and the
съеденного, появилось
intestines and also
выводящее
the
отверстие
arteries
анус,
became
а
manifested.
также
The rivers and
соответствующий орган
seas
чувств
are the
вместе с
source of their
управляющим им божеством
substance and
Митрой,
metabolism.
который
When there
отвечает за
was a
работу
desire to
этого
think
органа
about the
чувств,
activities of his own
равно
energy,
как и за
then the heart, the seat of the
субстанцию,
mind,
выводимую из
the mind,
кишечника.
the moon,
Затем он
determination, and
пожелал
all desire became
переселяться из
manifested.
одного тела
The
в
seven
другое, и
elements of the
тогда были
body, namely
созданы пупок,
the thin layer
воздух
on the
исхода,
skin itself,
апана и
the
смерть.
flesh, blood, fat, marrow, and
Пупок–
bone,
это
are
обитель
all made of
смерти
earth,
и
water, and fire,
разделяющей силы.
whereas the life breath is
Когда у
produced by
него
the sky,
возникло желание
water, and
есть и
air.
пить,
The sense
появились
organs
живот,
are attached to the
кишечник и
modes of
артерии.
material nature, and the
Источником их
modes of material
питания и
nature are
обмена веществ
products of the false
являются
ego.
реки и
The
моря.
mind is subjected to
Когда у
all
него
kinds of
появилось
material
желание
experiences,
размышлять о
happiness
том,
and
как
distress,
действует его
and the
энергия,
intelligence is the
возникли
feature of the
сердце
mind's
место
deliberation.
пребывания ума, ум,
Thus, by
луна,
all
решимость и
these, the
желание.
external feature
Все
of the
7
personality of
элементов
God is
тела,
discovered by growth from
тонкий
such as
слой,
those
поверх
of planets
кожи,
which were
сама
explained to you
кожа,
by me.
плоть, кровь,
Therefore,
жир,
beyond this
костный
gross
мозг
manifestation
и
is a
кость,
transcendental
созданные из
manifestation
земли,
finer
воды и огня,
than the finest
а
form.
дыхание жизни состоит
It
из
has no
неба,
beginning,
воды
no
и
intermediate
воздуха.
stage, and
Органы
no
чувств
end. Therefore, it
привязаны
is
к
beyond the
гунам
limits of
материальной природы,
expression
а
or
гуны
mental
материальной
speculation
природы
and is distinct from the material
порождены
conception.
ложным эго.
Neither of the above
Ум
forms of the
является
Lord,
источником
as
всевозможных
just
материальных
described unto you from the
переживаний,
material
счастья и
angle of
горя.
vision, is
А разум–
accepted by
это
the people of the
проявление
Lord who
способности
know
ума анализировать
him
и
well.
рассуждать.
He, the
Все это
personality of
составляет
God,
грубые
manifests
материальные
himself
формы,
in a
планеты и
transcendental
так
form,
далее,
being the
о которых
subject
я
of
уже
his
рассказывал тебе.
transcendental name,
Эти формы
quality,
служат
pastimes,
оболочками внешнего проявления
entourage, and
личности Бога.
transcendental
А за пределами этого грубого материального
variegatedness.
проявления
Although he is
простирается
unaffected by
трансцендентный
all
мир,
such
который
activities, he
тоньше
appears to be
самых тонких форм.
so engaged.
У него нет
O
ни
King,
начала,
know
ни
from me that
середины, ни
all living
конца,
entities are
поэтому его
created by
нельзя
the Supreme
описать
Lord
словами
according to
или
their past
постичь
deeds.
умом, и он
This includes
полностью лишен
Brahma and his son
материальных
like
качеств.
Daksha, the
Чистые
periodical
преданные
head
Господа, в
like
совершенстве постигшие его,
Vaivasvata Manu, the
не
demigods like
признают ни
Indra,
одной из
Chandra,
тех
and
форм
Varuna,
Господа,
the
которые я
great
только
sages
что
like
описал
Bhrigu,
тебе
Vyasa,
с
and
материальной точки
Vasishtha,
зрения.
the
Он
inhabitants
личность
of
Бога,
Pitriloka and
проявляя себя в
Siddhaloka,
трансцендентной
the
форме,
Charanas,
которой присущи
Gandharvas, Vidyadharas,
трансцендентное имя,
Asuras, Yakshas,
качество,
Kinnaras,
игры,
and angels,
окружение
the
и трансцендентное разнообразие.
serpentines, the
Однако вся эта
monkey-shaped
деятельность не
Kimpurishas, the
оказывает на
human
него
beings, the
никакого
inhabitants of
влияния, хотя он и
Matriloka, the
кажется
demons, the
вовлеченным в нее.
Shachas, ghosts,
О царь,
spirits,
узнай же,
lunatics, and evil
что
spirits,
Верховный
the
Господь
good and evil
создает все
stars,
живые
the
существа в
goblins, and the
соответствии с их
animals, and the
прошлыми
forest and
поступками.
the birds, the
Это
household
касается
animals,
Брамы
the
и его
reptiles,
сыновей
the
Дакши и
mountains,
других, периодически
the moving
меняющихся
and standing living
прародителей
entities, the living
человечества,
entities born from
Вайвасваты Ману и
embryos,
других,
from eggs, from
полубогов, Индры, Чандры,
respiration, and
Варуны
from
и так
seeds,
далее.
and all others,
Таких великих
whether they
мудрецов, как
be in
Бригу, Вьяса и
water, land,
Васиштха,
or sky, in
обитатели
happiness, in
Петрилоки
distress, or
и
in mixed
Ситхалоки,
happiness and
Чаран,
distress,
Ганхарвов,
all of them,
Видьядхар,
according to their
Асуров,
past
Якш,
deeds, are
Кинар
created
и
by the
ангелов,
Supreme Lord.
змей, обезьяноподобных
According to the
ким-пуруш,
different modes of material
людей,
nature, the mode
обитателей
of God, of
Матрилоки,
goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode
демонов,
of darkness, there
пешачей,
are different living
призраков,
creatures
духов,
who are known as
умалишенных,
demigods,
злых духов,
human beings, and hellish
благоприятных
living
и
entities.
неблагоприятных
O king,
звезд,
even a particular
домовых,
mode of
диких
nature,
животных,
being mixed
птиц,
with the other
домашних
two, is
животных,
divided into three, and
пресмыкающихся,
thus each
гор,
kind of living
движущихся и
creation is
неподвижных живых
influenced by the
существ,
other modes
существ,
and acquire its
рожденных из
habits also.
зародышей,
He is a
яиц,
personality of
пота,
Godhead
семян
as the
и
maintainer
всех
of all
остальных
in the
тех,
universe,
кто
appears in
живет в
different
воде, на
incarnations
суше
after
и в небе,
establishing
в
the
счастье
creation,
и
and thus
горе,
he reclaims
или в
all
счастье
kinds of
пополам с горем.
conditioned souls
Все
among
они
the
созданы
humans,
Верховным Господом
the
в
non-humans,
соответствии
and the
с их
demigods.
прошлыми поступками.
Thereafter, at the end of the
Различные сотворенные
millennium, the Lord
существа,
himself, in the
полубоги,
form of Rudra,
люди
the
и обитатели
destroyer,
ада,
will
находятся под
annihilate
влиянием
the
разных
complete
гун
creation
материальной природы,
as the
гуны
wind
благости, гуны
displaces the
страсти и гуны
clouds.
тьмы. Однако каждая из этих гун,
The
о царь,
great
смешиваясь с
transcendentalists
двумя
thus
другими,
describe the activity of the
делится на
Supreme
три,
Personality of
поэтому все
Godhead,
живые
but the pure
существа
devoted
формируют свои
deserve to
наклонности
see
под
more
смешанным
glorious
влиянием
things
трех гун.
in transcendence beyond
Сотворив
these
Вселенную,
features.
Он, Личность
There is
Бога,
no direct
принимает на
engineering
себя
by the
роль
Lord for
ее
the creation
хранителя
and function
и
of the
приходит
material
туда
world.
в
What is
образе своих
described in the
воплощений,
Vedas
чтобы
about his
призвать к себе
direct
все
interference
обусловленные
is
души,
simply
имеющие
to
тела людей,
counteract the idea
живых
that
существ,
material nature
стоящих
is
на
a
более
creator.
низком уровне развития и
This
полубогов.
process of creation and
Затем, в
annihilation
конце
described
Калпы,
in
сам
summary
Господь в
herein
образе
is the
Рудры,
regulative
разрушителя,
principle
полностью
during
уничтожает
the duration
мироздание,
of Brahma's
подобно
one day.
ветру,
It is also the
разгоняющему
regulative
облака.
principle in the creation of Mahat,
Так,
in
великие
which the material
трансценденталисты
nature is
описывают деяния Верховной Личности
dispersed.
Бога.
O King,
Но чистые
I
преданные
shall in due
получают
course
право
explain
видеть
the
более возвышенные
measurement of time
трансцендентные миры,
in its gross and subtle features
простирающиеся
with the
за пределами
specific symptoms,
материальных
but
проявлений.
for the present let
Сам
me
Господь
explain unto
не
you the
занимается ни
Padmakalpam.
творением, ни разрушением материального мира. Когда Веды говорят о его
Shaunaka Rishi,
непосредственном
after hearing all
вмешательстве,
about the
то
creation,
делают это
inquired from
только
Sutta
чтобы
Goswami about Vidura,
опровергнуть
for Sutta Goswami had
представление о том,
previously informed him
что
how
Творцом
Vidura
является
left
материальная
home,
природа.
leaving aside all his
Описанный здесь
relatives
вкратце процесс
who were
творения
very
и
difficult to live.
уничтожения является
Shaunaka
законом,
Rishi said,
который
let
действует в
us
течение
know,
одного
please,
дня
what
Брамы.
topics were
Тому же
discussed
закону
between Vidura and
подчиняется
Maitreya,
творение
who talked
Махат,
on
в
transcendental
котором
subjects, and what
рассеивается
was
материальная
inquired
энергия.
by
О
Vidura
царь,
and replied by
когда придет
Maitreya.
срок, я
Also,
объясню
please
тебе,
let us
как
know
измеряют
the
время
reason for
в его
Vidura's giving
грубом
up
и
the
тонком
connection of his
аспектах
family
и
members
опишу
and why he again came
отличительные
home.
признаки
Please
того и
also let
другого.
us know
А
the
сейчас
activities
позволь
of
мне
Vidura while
приступить к
he was in the
описанию
places of pilgrimage.
Падмакалпы.
Sri Sutta Goswami explained,
Выслушав
I
рассказ
shall now
Суты
explain to
Госвами
you the very
о
subjects
сотворении
explained by
Вселенной,
the great sage
Шаунака
in
Риши
answer to King
спросил
Parikshit.
его о
Please hear
Видуре,
them
поскольку
attentively.
ранее Сута Госвами упомянул, что Видура ушел из дома, покинув всех своих родственников, с которыми ему было так нелегко расставаться. Шаунака Риши сказал: «Будь добр, поведай нам, какие вопросы обсуждали Видура и Майтрея, беседуя о трансцендентном, о чем спрашивал Видура и что отвечал ему Майтрея. Расскажи также о причине, по которой Видура порвал отношения с членами своей семьи, и о том, почему он снова вернулся домой. Поведай нам также о том, что делал Видура в местах паломничества». Шри Сута Госвами сказал: «Теперь я расскажу вам, о чем говорил великий мудрец, отвечая на вопросы царя Парикшита. Пожалуйста, внимательно выслушайте все его ответы». Конец второй песни.
The end of the canto
Песня
2.
третья.
Canto
Статус
3.
кво.
The status quo. Chapter 1.
Глава
Questions by
первая.
Vidura.
Вопросы Видуры.
Shukadeva Goswami said,
Шукадева
after
Госвами
renouncing
сказал:
his prosperous
«Покинув
home
свой богатый
and
дом,
entering the forest,
царь
King
Видура,
Vidura, the great
великий
devotee,
преданный,
asked
пришел в
this
лес и
question
обратился
of his
к
grace
его
Maitreya
милости
Rishi.
Майтрея Риши с такими вопросами.
What else is there to say about
Что
the
еще можно
residential
сказать о
house of
доме
the
Пандавов?
Pandavas? Shri
Шри
Krishna, the
Кришна,
Lord of everything,
Господь всего
acted as
сущего,
your
был вашим
minister. He used
советником,
to enter
Он
that house
входил в ваш
as
дом
if it were
как
his
свой
own,
собственный,
and he didn't
а
take
дом
any care
Дурьоданы
of
обходил
Duryodhana's
стороной.
house. The
Царь
king asked
спросил
Shukadeva Goswami,
Шукадеву Госвами,
where and when did the
где и
meetings and
когда
discussion
встретились и
take place
беседовали
between Saint
благочестивый
Vidura and his
Видура
great Maitreya
и его
Muni?
милость
Kindly
Майтрея Муни?
oblige my Lord and describe
Прошу
this to
тебя,
us.
мой господин, поведай
Saint
нам об
Vidura was a
этом.
great and pure devotee
Благочестивый Видура
of
был
the
великой
Lord, and
душой,
therefore his
чистым
questions
преданным
to His
Господа,
Grace Rishi
поэтому
Maitreya
вопросы, с
must
которыми
have
он
been very
обратился к его милости Риши
purposeful,
Майтреи, вне
on the
всякого
highest level
сомнения,
and
были
approved
полны
by
глубокого смысла.
learned circles.
Это, безусловно, были вопросы высочайшего духовного уровня, получившие
Shri Suta
одобрение
Goswami
великих
said,
мудрецов.
the great sage
Шри
Shukadeva
Сута Госвами
Goswami was
сказал,
highly
великому
experienced and
мудрецу
was pleased
Шукадеве
with the
Госвами,
king.
обладавшему обширными познаниями,
Thus,
пришлись
being
по душе
questioned by the king,
вопросы
he
царя.
said to him,
Отвечая
please
ему,
hear the
он
topics
сказал,
attentively.
внимательно выслушай все, о чем я собираюсь
Shri
тебе
Shukadeva
рассказать.
Goswami said,
Шри Шукадева
Dhritarashtra
Госвами
became
сказал,
blind under the influence of
ослепленный
impious
греховным
desires
желанием
to nourish
обеспечить
his
будущее
dishonest sons,
своих
and thus
бесчестных
he set
сыновей,
fire to
царь
the
Дритараштра решил погубить
lacquer
своих
house to
оставшихся без
burn
отца
his
племянников, пандавов, и, поселив их
fatherless
в
nephew,
смоляном
the
доме,
Pandavas.
поджег его. Царь не
The king did not
воспрепятствовал
forbid his
отвратительному
son
поступку своего сына
Dushasana
Душасаны, когда
abominable
тот
action of
схватил за волосы Драупади,
grabbing the hair of
жену
Draupadi,
праведного царя
the wife of the
Юдхиштхиры,
god
хотя
king
слезы
Yudhishthira. Even
ручьями
though her
текли из
tears
его
washed
глаз,
the red dust
смывая с ее
on her
груди
breast.
красную кункуму.
Yudhishthira, who was born
Юдхиштхира,
without any
от
enemy,
рождения не
was
имевший
unfairly
ни одного
defeated in
врага,
gambling, but
проиграл
because he
партию в
had
кости,
taken the
потому что
vow
его
of
соперники
truthfulness,
прибегли к
he
мошенничеству.
went off to the
Тем не
forest.
менее, верный данному им обету
When he came back in
правдивости,
due
он
course and
удалился в лес.
begged the
Когда же в
turn of
назначенный срок
his
Юдхиштхира
rightful
вернулся
share of the
и попросил
kingdom,
его
he
возвратить
was
по
refused by
праву
Dhritarashtra,
принадлежащую
who was
ему часть
overwhelmed by
царства,
illusion.
Дритараштра, на которого
Lord Krishna
нашло
was sent by
помрачение,
Arjuna into
отверг
the
его просьбу.
assembly as
Арджуна
the
направил
spiritual
Господа
master of the
Кришну,
whole world,
духовного
and
учителя
although
всего мира, в собрание
his words
Кауравов.
were heard by some,
Одним,
like
Бишме
Bhishma,
и ему
as pure
подобным,
nectar, it
речи
was not
Господа
so for
показались
the others,
чистейшим
who
нектаром,
were
но
completely
другие не
bereft
обратили
of the
на них
last
никакого внимания, так как до
pathing
последней
of
капли
past pious works.
исчерпали
The
запас
king
своих прошлых
Dhritarashtra of
благочестивых
Duryodhana
деяний.
did not take the words of
Царь
Lord Krishna very
Дритараштра или
seriously.
Дурьодхана вообще не
When
приняли
Vidura was
слова
invited by
Кришны
his
всерьез.
elder brother
Когда старший брат
Dhritarashtra
Видуры,
for consultation,
Дритараштра,
he
пригласил его
entered the house and
к
gave
себе, чтобы
instructions which
спросить у него
were
совета,
exactly to the
Видура
point.
придя в его
His
дом,
advice
дал
is
ему
well known,
весьма
and
уместные наставления.
instructions by
Его
Vidura are
поручения
approved by
хорошо
expert
известны, и их высоко
ministers of
ценят
state.
мудрые государственные
Vidura
мужи.
said, "You must now return the
Видура сказал, ты должен вернуть законную
legitimate
долю
share
наследства
to Yudhira,
Юдхиштхире, у
who
которого
has no
нет врагов,
enemies and
и
who has
который
been
терпеливо перенес
forbearing through
причиненные тобой
untold
жестокие
sufferings
страдания.
due to your
Он и
offenses.
его младшие
He is
братья
waiting with
ждут
his
этого,
younger
и
brothers,
среди них
among whom is the
Бхима, жаждущий
revengeful Bhima,
отмщения,
breathing
и
heavenly like a
дышащий
snake.
тяжело,
Surely you are
словно
afraid of him.
разозленная
Lord
змея.
Krishna, the
Тебе ли
personality
не
of Godhead,
бояться его?
has accepted
Господь
the
Шри
sons of
Кришна,
Pritha
верховная
as
личность
his
Бога,
kinsmen,
считает
and all
сыновей
the kings
Притхи
of the
своими
world are
родственниками, и на
with
стороне
Lord Shri
Господа
Krishna.
Кришны
He is
все цари мира.
present in his home
Сейчас он
with
находится в
all
своем
his
доме
family members,
в окружении
the
родственников
kings
царей
and
рода
princes
Яду
of the
и
Yadu
их
dynasty,
отпрысков,
who have
одержавших
conquered
победу
an
над
unlimited
несметным
number of
числом правителей
rulers,
и
and he
царей,
is
и
their
он
Lord.
является их повелителем. Ты поддерживаешь Дурьодхану, олицетворение
You are
порока,
maintaining
считая его
offense
своим
personified
безупречным сыном,
Duryodhana as
несмотря
the
на то,
infallible son,
что он враждебно
but he is
относится к
envious
Господу
of the Lord
Кришне.
Krishna. And because
Поддерживая
you are
врага
thus
Кришны,
maintaining a
ты лишаешься всех
non-devotee of Krishna,
добродетелей.
you are devoid of
Немедленно
all
сбрось с себя
auspicious
это
qualities.
тяжкое бремя,
Relieve
и ты
yourself of
принесешь благо всему
this
своему роду.
ill fortune as soon as possible
Услышав
and do
слова
good to the whole
Видуры,
family.
которого все
Thus,
достойные люди
Vidura, whose
считали
personal character
безукоризненным
was
человеком,
esteemed
Дурьодхана
by a respectable person, was
с распухшим
insulted
от
by
ярости
Duryodhana,
лицом
who was
и
swollen with
трясущимися
anger and
губами
whose lips
принялся
were
осыпать
trembling.
его
Duryodhana
оскорблениями.
was in company
Вместе с
with
Дурьодханой
brothers
там
and
были
his
его младшие братья
maternal uncle
Карна
Shakuni,
и
who
дядя
asked
по
him to
матери
come here,
Шакуни.
the son of a kept mistress.
Кто звал
He is so crooked that he is
сюда
in
этого
the
сына
interest of the
наложницы?
enemy against Those on whose support he has grown up, toss him out of the palace immediately and leave him in his breath. Thus, being pierced by a arrow through his ear, afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and kicked his brother's palace. He was not sorry for the considered acts of the external energy to be supreme. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantage of the pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapura, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimages, which are the Lord's lotus feet. With a desire to gain a higher order of pious life, he traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. He began to travel along, thinking only of Krishna through various holy places like Ayodhya, Dwaraka, and Mathura. He traveled where the grove, river, and lake are all pure and sinless, and where the forms of the unlimited decorated temples. Thus he performed the pilgrim's progress. Whilst traversing the earth, he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places, although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hairdressing, nor a bed on which to lie. Thus he was always unseen by his various relatives. Thus, when he was in the land of Bharatavarsha, traveling to all the places of pilgrimage, he visited Prabha Kshetra. At that time, Maharaja Yudhishthira was the emperor and held the world under the military strength and one flag. At the place of pilgrimage at Prabhasa, it came to his knowledge that all his relatives had died due to violent passion, just as the entire forest burns due to fire produced by the friction of bamboos. After this, he proceeded west, where the river Saraswati flows. On the bank of the river Saraswati, there were 11 places of pilgrimage, namely Tritalshana, Manu, Pithu, Agni, Asita, Vayu, Sudasa, Go, Kuha, and Shradhadeva. Vidura visited all of them and duly performed rituals. There were also many other temples of various forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, established by great sages and demigods. These temples were marked with the chief emblems of the Lord, and they reminded one always of the original personality of Godhead Lord Krishna. Thereafter he passed through very wealthy provinces like Surat, Suvira, and Matsya, and through western India, known as Kurunchangala. At last he reached the bank of the Yamuna, where he happened to meet Uddhava, the great devotee of the Lord Krishna. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him, Uddhava, who was a constant compassion of Lord Krishna, a great student of Brihaspati. Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, whether the original personalities of Godhead, who incarnates himself at the request of Brahman, who is born out of the lotus flower from the Lord, and who have increased the prosperity of the world by elevating everyone, are doing well in the house of Shrasena. Please tell me whether the best friend of the Kurus, our brother-in-law Vasudeva, is doing well. He is very munificent. He is like a father to his sisters, and he is always pleasing to his wives. O Uddhava, please tell me how is Pradyumna, the commander-in-chief of the Yadus, who was Cupid in a former life. Rukmini bore him as her son from Lord Krishna by the grace of Brahmanas, whom she pleased.
который в своей
O my
прошлой
friend,
жизни
tell
был
me,
Купидоном.
whether Ugrasena,
Он
the
сын
king of the
Господа Кришны и
Sattvatas,
Рукмини,
Vrishnis,
родивший его
Borges, and
по благословению
Dasharhas,
браманов,
is
которым
now
она
doing well.
некогда сумела
He
угодить.
went far away from
Скажи,
his kingdom,
друг
leaving
мой,
aside all
все
hopes
ли
of his royal
благополучно у
throne.
Уграсены,
But Lord
царя
Krishna again
Сатватов,
installed
Бришни,
him.
Бhoджи и
O
Дашархов?
gentle one, does
Уйдя
Samba
в изгнание, он
farewell
потерял всякую
exactly
надежду
resembles the
вернуть свое
son of
царство,
the
но Господь
personality of
Кришна
Godhead.
снова
In a
возвел его на
previous birth,
престол.
he was born
О
as
благородный,
Kartikeya
все
in
ли в
the womb of
порядке
the
у
wife of
Самбы,
the Lord Shiva,
который как две
and now
капли
he has
воды
been born
похож на
in the
своего
womb of
отца,
Jambavati, the
личность
most
Бога? В
enriched
прошлой
wife
жизни
of
он
Krishna.
звался Картикеей
O
и
Uddhava,
родился у
does
жены
Yudhishthira
Господа Шивы,
farewell?
а
He
в этой
learned the
появился на свет из
intricacies of
чрева
the military art
Джамбавати,
from Arjuna and attained the
добродетельнейшей из жен
transcendental
Кришны.
destination, which is
О
very
Удава,
difficult to reach even for
все ли
great
благополучно у
renouncers.
Юдханы? Он обучался хитростям
Please tell
военного
me
искусства
whether
у
Akrura,
Арджуны
the son
и
of
поднялся на трансцендентный уровень,
Shvapalka, is
которого
doing
очень трудно
well.
достичь
He
даже
is a
самым великим
faultless soul,
из тех,
surrendered unto the
кто дал
personality
обет
of Godhead.
отречения от
He
мира.
once lost his mental
Поведай,
equilibrium due to
пожалуйста,
his
все ли
ecstasy of
благополучно у
transcendental love
Акруры,
and fell
сына
down on the
Швабхалки?
dust of a road
Он
which was
чистая
marked
душа,
with the
предашься
footprints of Lord
личности Бога.
Krishna.
Однажды в
As
экстазе
the Vedas
трансцендентной
are the
любви он
reservoir of
потерял рассудок и упал
sacrificial
прямо
purposes,
в
so the
дорожную
daughter of
пыль,
King Devaka
хранившую
Bhoja
отпечатки стоп
conceived the
Господа
supreme
Кришны.
personality of Godhead in her
Так
womb,
Веды содержат в
as
себе
did the
цель
mother of the
совершения
demigods.
всех жертвоприношений.
Is Shri
Так
Devaki
дочь
doing
царя
well?
Devaka
May I
Bhoджи,
inquire whether
подобно матери
Aniruddha is doing
полубогов,
well? He is
носила в
the
своем чреве
fulfiller
верховную
of all
личность Бога.
the desires
Все
of
ли
the pure
благополучно у
devotees and
нее,
has been
Деваки?
considered from
Позволь
your
узнать,
to be
все ли в
the
порядке у
cause
Анирудхи.
of the
Он
Rigveda,
исполняет
the
все
creator of the
желания
mind and
чистых
the fourth
преданных,
plenary
и
expansions of
его
Vishnu.
испокон веков
O sober
считают
one, others
источником
such as
Ригведы,
Hridika, Charudeshna,
создателя
Gada,
ума
and the son of
и четвертой
Satyabhama,
полной
who
экспансии
accept Lord
Вишну.
Shri Krishna as the soul
Он
of the self
рассудительный,
and thus
как
follow his
обстоят,
path
о
without
рассудительный,
deviation. Are
как
they
обстоят
well?
дела у других, Хридики, Чарудешны,
Also, let me
Гады и
inquire
сына
whether
Сатябхамы,
Maharaja Yudhishthira
которые видят
is
в
now
Господе Кришне
maintaining
свою
the
душу
kingdom
и
according to the
потому
religious
во всем
principles
безоговорочно
and with the
следуют ему.
respect for the
Все
path
ли
of religion.
благополучно у них?
Formerly, Duryodhana
Позволь
was
также
burning
узнать,
with envy
правит ли
because
Махараджа
Yudhishthira
Юдхиштхира
was being
своим царством
protected by the
в
arms of
соответствии
Krishna
с
and
религиозными
Arjuna as if they
принципами
were his
и
own arms.
почитает ли он религию? Было время,
Please tell me whether
когда
the
Дурьодхана пылал завистью к
inconquerable
Юдхиштхире,
Bhima, who
потому
is
что
like a
руки
cobra,
Кришны
has released
и
his
Арджуны защищали его
long-cherished
так
anger
надежно,
upon his
как будто
sinners.
были его
The field of
собственными
battle could
руками.
not tolerate even the
Расскажи,
wonderful
пожалуйста,
playing of his
обрушил ли
club when
непобедимый
he
Бегима,
stepped on the
который
path.
подобен кобре, свой
Please
столь
tell me
долго
whether Arjuna, whose
сдерживаемый
bow
гнев
bears
на
the
головы
name
этих
Gandiva
нечестивцев,
and who is
когда,
always
играя
famous
палицей,
among the
он
chariot
выходил на поле
uh,
битвы, все
warriors
воины,
for
собравшиеся там,
vanquishing his enemies,
приходили в
is doing
неописуемый
well.
ужас.
He once satisfied
Пожалуйста,
Lord Shiva
расскажи,
by
все ли
covering him
благополучно у
with arrows
Арджуны,
when Shiva came
чей
as
лук носит имя Гандивы?
an
Среди воинов, сражающихся на
unidentified false
колесницах,
hunter.
он славится тем, что всегда побеждает своих врагов. Даже Господь
Are the
Шива
twin brothers
остался
who are
доволен Арджуной,
protected by their
когда
brothers
однажды,
doing well? And
представ
just
перед
as
ним
the
в облике
eye
охотника,
is
был
always
встречен
protected by the
неузнанный
eyelid, they are
градом
protected by
его
the sons
стрел.
of Pritha, who
Все ли
snatched back
благополучно у
their rightful
близнецов,
kingdom
живущих
from
под
the
опекой
hands of
старших
the
братьев?
enemy
Как веки
Duryodhana,
защищают
just as
глаза,
Garuda
так
snatched
близнецов
nectar from the
защищают сыновья
mouth of
Притхи,
Indra, the thunderbolt
которые
carrier.
отняли у своего
O
врага
my Lord,
Дурьодханы,
is Pritha still living?
принадлежащие
She
им по
lived
праву
only for the
царства,
sake of
подобно
her
тому, как некогда
fatherless
Гаруда
children.
унес нектар
Otherwise, it
из
was
уст
impossible for her to
громоверца
live
Индры.
without King Pandu, who was
Жива
the
ли еще
greatest
Притха,
commander
о мой
and who
господин?
alone conquered the
Она
four
осталась жить только ради
directions
своих
simply with the help of
осиротевших
a second
сыновей.
bow.
Если бы не они, она не вынесла бы
O
разлуки
gentle
с
one,
царем
I see
Панду,
Dhritarashtra, who
великим
rebelled against his
военачальником,
brother
который,
after death.
воспользовавшись вторым
By him
луком,
out of my
сумел в
own
одиночку
house,
покорить
although I
все
am
четыре
his
стороны
sincere
света.
well-wisher,
О
because he
благородный,
accepted the line
мне
of action
остается только
adopted by
скорбеть о
his
нем,
own sons.
Дритараштре. восставшим против своего умершего
I am
брата.
not
Я
astonished at
всегда
this,
искренне желал
having
ему
traveled
добра,
over the world
но,
without being
несмотря на
seen by
это,
others.
он,
The
пойдя на
activities of the
поводу
personality
своих
of Godhead,
сыновей,
which are like
выгнал
those
меня
of a
из
man in
собственного
this
дома.
mortal world, are
После того,
bewildering
как
to
я,
others, but I know of
оставаясь
his
неузнанным, прошел по
greatness
миру,
by
все
his
это
grace,
больше
and
не
thus I am
удивляет меня.
happy
Деяния
in all
личности Бога,
respects.
который кажется
Despite his being the Lord and
поступками
being
простого
always
смертного,
willing to
многих
relieve the
приводит в
distress of
замешательство.
sufferers,
Однако
Sri
мне,
Krishna
его
refrained
милостью,
from killing
открылось
the
его
cruels,
величие, и
although they
потому я
committed
чувствую себя
all sorts of
вполне
sins,
счастливым.
and although he
Несмотря на
saw
свою
other
верховную
kings
власть
constantly
над всем
agitating
сущим и
the earth
свою
by their
неизменную
strong military
готовность
movements
прийти на
carried out
помощь
under the
страждущим, он,
dictation of three
Кришна,
kinds of
не
false
стал
pride.
сразу уничтожать род Куру, хотя не было
The appearance of the
такого
Lord is
греха,
manifested for
которого
the
бы они не
annihilation
совершили,
of
и
the
хотя он
upstarts.
видел, что другие
His
цари,
activities are
движимые
transcendental
гордыней
and are
3 видов,
enacted for the
своими военными
understanding of all persons.
походами
Otherwise, since the
беспрестанно
Lord is
нарушали покой
transcendental to
земли.
all material modes,
Господь приходит
what
сюда для
purpose
того,
could
чтобы
he serve by
уничтожить
coming to
самонадеянных
earth?
негодяев.
O my
Его
friend,
деяния
please therefore
трансцендентны,
chant the
и
glories
Он
of the
совершает
Lord
их
who is meant to
только
be
чтобы
glorified in the
просветить
places of
людей.
pilgrimage.
Какую
He is
еще цель
unborn,
может
and yet he
преследовать
appears by his
трансцендентный
causeless
гуном
mercy
материальной
upon
природы Господь,
the
приходя на землю?
surrendered rulers of all
Поэтому
parts
прошу Тебя,
of the
друг мой,
universe. Only for their interest
восславь Господа,
did he
хвалу
appear in
которому
the family
возносят
of his
в святых
unalloyed
местах. Он
devotees, the
нерожденный, и
Yadus.
все же Он
The
приходит
end
сюда,
of the
чтобы даровать
chapter.
свою беспричинную милость всем покорным Ему правителям Вселенной. Только ради их блага Он явился в роду своих чистых преданных, ядовов. Конец 1 главы. Глава 2.
Chapter number 2.
Воспоминания о Господе
Remembrance
Кришне.
of Lord Krishna.
Шри
Sri
Шукадева
Shukadeva
Госвами
Goswami
сказал,
said, when the great
когда
devotee
Видура попросил
Uddhava
великого
was asked by
преданного
Vidura to
Удаву
speak on the
рассказать ему
messages
о
of the
том, кто был
dearest
дороже
Lord Krishna,
всего его
Uddhava was
сердцу, о
unable to
Господе
answer
Кришне,
immediately
Удава не
due
смог
to
ответить сразу из-за
excessive
сильного
anxiety
волнения,
at the remembrance
которое
of the
охватило
Lord.
его при воспоминании о
He
Господе.
was one who, even
Его,
in his
Удаву,
childhood,
еще
at
в
the age
детстве,
of 5
в
years in the
возрасте 5
service of the
лет,
Lord Krishna, that when he
так
was
захватило
called by his
служение
mother
Господу
for
Кришне,
morning
что
breakfast,
когда мать
he
звала
did
его
not wish to
завтракать,
have it.
он отказывался от еды.
Uddhava thus served the Lord
Так с самого
continually
детства
from
Удава
childhood, and in
непрерывно
his old
служил
age
Господу,
that
и даже
attitude
в
of
старости
service never
продолжал
slackened.
служить Ему с
As
неослабевающим
soon as he was asked about
рвением.
the message of the Lord,
И когда
he
Видура
at
попросил
once
его
remembered
рассказать
all
о
about
Господе,
him.
он сразу вспомнил обо всем,
For a
что было
moment he
связано с ним.
remained dead
Какое-то
silent,
мгновение он
and his
хранил
body
полное
didn't move.
молчание,
He the
застыв в
nectar of
неподвижности.
remembering the Lord's
Он
lotus feet
погрузился в нектар
in devotion
воспоминаний
ecstasy,
о
and he
лотосных
appeared to
стопах
be
Господа
going
и впал
increasingly
в
deeper
экстаз
into that
преданности,
ecstasy.
который с каждым мгновением
It was so
становился все
observed by
сильнее.
Vidura that
Видура
Uddhava
наблюдал
had all the transcendental
трансцендентные
bodily
перемены,
changes due to
происшедшие в
total
теле Удавы,
ecstasy, and he was
который
trying to
впал в
wipe away
экстатическое
tears of
состояние и
separation
утратил,
from his eyes.
лишившийся и утирал
Thus
лившиеся
Vidura could
из глаз
understand that
слезы
Uddhava
разлуки.
had
При
completely
виде этого
assimilated
Видура понял,
extensive
что
love for the
Удава
Lord.
любил Господа.
The great devotee Uddhava
Возвратился
soon
из
came
обители
back from the
Господа
abode of the
в
Lord
мир,
to the human plane, and
населенный
wiping his
людьми,
eyes,
и
he
осушил
awakened his
глаза. В нем
reminiscence of the
ожили
past and spoke
картины
to Vidura
прошлого,
in a pleasing mood.
и, пребывая в приятном расположении духа, он стал отвечать
Sri
на
Uddhava
вопросы
said,
Видуры.
My dear Vidura, the
Шри
Son of the
Удава
world,
сказал,
Lord Krishna, has said,
дорогой
and
Видура,
our house
зашло
has
солнце
now
этого
been
мира,
swallowed by
Господь
the
Кришна,
great snake of
и
time.
великий змей
What can I
времени
say to
поглотил наш
you
дом.
about our
Что еще
welfare?
сказать тебе о том,
This universe,
как обстоят
with
наши
all
дела?
its planets,
Эта вселенная со всеми
is
ее
most
планетами
unfortunate, and even more unfortunate
несчастнейшая
are
из
the members
несчастных,
of the Yadu
но еще
dynasty,
более
because
несчастны
they
те,
could not
кто
identify Lord
принадлежал к
Hari
роду
as the
Яду,
personality
ибо
of
они
Godhead
не
any more
понимали,
than
что
the
Господь
fish
Хари
could
был
identify the
верховной
moon.
личностью Бога, как некогда рыбы
The
не
Yadus
могли
were all
понять,
experienced
что такое
devotees,
Луна.
learned
Ядовы были
and expert in
опытными, преданными и хорошо знали человеческую
psychic
психологию.
study.
Более того,
Over and
они повсюду
above this,
сопровождали
they
Господа
were always
и
with the Lord
участвовали
in
во
all kinds
всех
of
его
relaxa-
развлечениях. И тем не менее, они видели в нем только
relaxations, and still they were
единого
only able to
Всевышнего,
know Him
который
as the only
пребывает
Supreme
всюду.
who dwells everywhere.
Слова
Under
людей,
no
введенных в
circumstances can the
заблуждение
words of
иллюзорной энергии
persons
Господа,
bewildered by the
никогда не
illusory
смутят
energy of the
разум
Lord
тех,
deviate
кто полностью
the
предался ему.
intelligence of those who are
Господь Шри
completely
Кришна,
surrendered
который
souls.
явил миру свою вечную форму,
Lord Sri
ушел,
Krishna, who
исчезнув
manifested
из поля
his
зрения
eternal form
тех,
before the vision of
кто,
all on
не
the
совершив
earth, performed
необходимых
his
аскез,
disappearance
не
by
смог
removing
увидеть в
his
нем
form from the
Всевышнего.
sight of those who were
Господь
unable
явил
to see
себя
him,
в
as
этом
he is due
бренном
to
мире
not
посредством своей
executing
внутренней
required
энергии
penance.
Йога-майи. Он пришел
The Lord
сюда в
appeared in the
своей
mortal
вечной
world
форме,
by his
которая идеально
internal
подходит
potency
для
Yoga
его
Maya.
игр.
He
Игры
came in his
Господа поразили
eternal
всех,
form,
даже
which is
тех,
just
кто был
suitable
очень
for
горд
his
своими
pastimes. These
достоинствами,
pastimes
включая
were
самого
wonderful
Господа в
for
образе
everyone, even
Господа
for those
Вайкунхи.
proud of their
Вот
own
почему
opulence,
его, Шри Кришны,
including the Lord himself in his
трансцендентное
form
тело
as the
является
Lord of
украшением
Vaikuntha.
всех
Thus,
украшений.
his Sri
Все
Krishna
полубоги с
transcendental
высших и
body
низших и
is the
средних планет и
ornamental
систем
of
Вселенной
all ornaments.
собрались у
All the
алтаря
demigods from the
Раджасуи,
upper, lower, and middle universal
Яги,
planetary
которую
system
совершал Махараджа
assembles at the
Юдхиштхира.
altar of the Rajasuya sacrifice
Увидев
performed by
неотразимую
Maharaja
красоту Господа
Yudhishthira.
Кришны,
After
они
seeing the
решили,
beautiful bodily
что
features of
тело
Lord
Кришны
Krishna,
самое
they all
совершенное
contemplated
создание Брамы,
that he was the ultimate
Творца
and
человека.
dexterous creation of Brahma,
Девушки
the
Враджа,
creator of human
которые,
beings.
играя с Кришной,
The damsels
смеялись,
of Raja,
шутили
after
и
pastimes of uh,
переглядывались с ним. Всякий
laughter,
раз,
humor,
когда
and
Кришна уходил от них,
exchanges of glances, were
ощущали жгучую боль.
anguished when
Они
Krishna left
провожали
them.
его долгим
They used to
взглядом,
follow
а
him
затем
with their
опускались на
eyes,
землю
and thus
и
they sat
сидели
down
в
with stunned
оцепенении, не в
intelligence
силах
and
закончить
could
свои
not
домашние
finish
дела.
their household duties.
Всемилостивый Господь,
The
повелитель
personality of
духовного
God,
и
the
материального миров,
all-compassionate controller of
является
both the
нерожденным,
spiritual and
но
material
когда между
creation, is
его
unborn, but
миролюбивыми,
when there is friction between his
преданными и
peaceful
людьми,
devotees who are in the
находящимся
material
под
modes of
влиянием
nature,
гун
it takes
материальной
birth just
природы,
like fire
возникает
accompanied
трение.
by the
Он
Mahatat. When I
рождается здесь
think of Lord
подобно
Krishna,
огню,
how
и
he was
вместе с ним
burning the
в этот мир
prison
приходит
house of
Маха-татва.
Vasudeva,
Когда я
although
думал
he is
о
unborn,
Господе Кришне,
how he
о
went
том,
away from
как
his
он
father's
нерожденный
protection to Raja
родился в
and
темнице,
lived there incognito out of
куда
fear
был заточен Васудева, как,
of the enemy,
лишившись
and
отцовского
how, although
покровительства,
unlimitedly
оказался
powerful,
во
he
Врадже
fled from
и
Madhura
из
in
страха
fear
перед
of
врагом
all these
скрывался там,
bewildering
выдавая
incidents
себя
give
за
me
другого,
distress.
и как он, несмотря на свое беспредельное могущество,
Lord
в
Krishna
смятении бежал
begged
из
pardon
Мадхуры.
from his parents
Это приводит
for
меня в
their Krishna and
замешательство
Balarama's
и причиняет страдания.
inability to serve
Господь
their
Кришна
feet,
просил у
due to
своих
being away
родителей
from home because of great fear of Kamsa.
прощения за
He
то,
said, "O
что они,
mother, O father, please
Кришна и Баларама,
excuse us
не
for this
могли служить их
inability.
стопам,
All this
поскольку из
behavior
страха перед
of the
Камсой
Lord gives me
оказались
pained
вдали от дома.
heart,
«Матушка, отец, — говорил он, — простите нас за
who
то,
after
что мы не
smelling the
смогли
dust of his
исполнить
lotus feet even once could ever
свой
forget it.
сыновий долг.
Simply by expanding the
От подобных
lids of his
поступков
eyebrows,
Господа у
Krishna
меня
has given
развивается
the
сердце.
death
Разве
blow to
сможет тот,
those
кто
who
хоть раз
were
вдохнул
burying
запах
the
пыли
earth?
с его лотосных стоп, когда-нибудь
You have
забыть
personally
ее
seen how the
аромат?
king of
Одним движением бровей
Chedi
Кришна
Shishupala
нанес смертельный удар всем
achieved
тем,
success in
под
yoga
чьим гнетом
practice, although
стонала
he
земля.
hated Lord
На
Krishna.
твоих глазах
Even the actual
царь
yogis
Чеди
aspire after
Шишупала
such acts
достиг
with
высшей
great
цели
interest by
йоги,
performance of
хотя и
their
ненавидел Господа
various
Кришну.
practices.
Даже
Who can
настоящие йоги
tolerate
горят
separation from
желанием
him?
добиться подобного
Certainly
успеха и
others
ради
who
этого
were
выполняют
fighters on the
свои
battlefield of
упражнения.
Kurukshetra
У кого
were
хватит
purified
сил
by
вынести
the
разлуку с
onslaught of
ним?
Arjuna's arrows,
Те же,
and while
кто
seeing the
сражался на поле
lotus-like
битвы
face of Krishna,
Курукшетра, не
so
всякого
pleasing to the
сомнения
eyes,
очистились
they
под
achieve the
градом стрел,
abode of the
выпущенных
Lord.
Арджуной, и созерцали
Lord Sri
радующий
Krishna
взор
is the Lord of all kinds of
лотосоподобный лик
threes and
Кришны,
is independently
достигли обители
supreme
Господа.
by achievement of all
Господь
kinds
Шри
of
Кришна
virtues.
является повелителем
He
всех
is worshipped by the
триединств
eternal
и независимым,
maintainers of the creation who
верховным
offer
владыкой
him
всех богатств
the
и
personality of
достояний.
worship by attaching the
Миллионы
amulets of
вечных
helmets to
хранителей
his feet.
порядка в творении поклоняются ему
Therefore, O
и
Vidura,
приносят ему дары,
does it not pain us, his servitors, when we
касаясь
remember
своими
that
шлемами его
he, Lord
стоп.
Krishna, used to stand
Поэтому,
before
о
King
Видура,
Ugrasena, who was
можем ли
sitting
мы,
on the royal
его
throne,
слуги,
and used
без
to
боли вспоминать о
submit
том,
explanations
как
before
он,
him,
Господь Кришна,
saying, O my Lord,
стоял перед
please let it be
восседавшим на
known to
троне
you.
царем Уграсеной и, держа перед ним ответ, говорил:
Alas, how shall
«Позволь
I
мне,
take shelter
мой
of one
повелитель,
more merciful
рассказать
than
тебе обо
he who
всем, что
granted the
произошло,
position of mother to
где
Shedemon
еще найду я
Shidimon
покровителя
Putana,
более милостивого, чем
although she
он,
was unfaithful
пожаловавший
and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast.
место матери вероломной
I consider
ведьме
the demons
Путани,
who are
несмотря на то,
inimical
что
towards the
она,
Lord to be
смазав
more
свою
than
грудь
the
смертоносным
devotees,
ядом,
because while
дала ее
fighting with
Господу.
the
Я
Lord
думаю, что
absorbed in
демоны,
thoughts of
ненавидящие
enmity,
Господа,
they are able
находятся в
to
лучшем
see the Lord
положении,
carried on
нежели
the
преданные,
shoulder of
ибо,
Garuda,
сражаясь с
the son of
Господом, они,
Takshya,
поглощенные
Kashyapa,
злобными
and
мыслями о
carried the
нем,
wheel
видят перед
weapon
собой Господа,
in
восседающего
his
на
hand,
плечах Гаруды,
weapon in his hand.
сына Тарши,
The personality
Кашьяпы,
of God, Lord Shri
и
Krishna,
держащего
being
в
prayed
руке
to
свой грозный
by
диск.
Brahma to bring
Личность
welfare
Бога,
to the
Господь
earth, was
Кришна,
forgotten by
Господь Шри
Vasudeva
Кришна,
in the womb
вняв
of his
просьбам
king
Брамы,
in the prison of the king of Bojam.
молившего его принести на землю
Thereafter,
о
his father,
благоденствии,
being
стал
afraid of
сыном
Kamsa, brought
Васудевы,
him to the
который
cow
зачал его в
pastures
лоне
of
своей жены
Maharajananda,
Деваки,
and
темнице
there
царя
he
Броджи.
lived for 11
После
years
этого отец
like a
Кришны в
covered
страхе
flame
перед
with
Камсой
his elder
отнес его
brother
туда,
Baladeva.
где простирались
In his childhood,
пастбища
the
Махараджа Нанды,
Almighty
словно
Lord was
тлеющий
surrounded
до
by
поры
coward
скрытый
boys
от глаз
and calves,
огонь.
and thus
Он
traveled
прожил
on the
там
shore of the
11 лет
Yamuna River
вместе со
through
своим
gardens
старшим братом Баладевой. В детстве
densely
всемогущий
covered
Господь,
with trees and
окруженный
filled with the branches
мальчиками-пастушками
of
и телятами,
chirping
гулял по берегам
birds.
Ямуны, проходя через густые заросли и сады, где не
When the
смолкали
Lord
птичьи
displayed
трели.
his activities just
Только
suitable
жители
for food,
Вриндавана
he was
имели
visible
возможность
only to the
наслаждаться
residents of
детскими играми
Vrindavana.
Господа,
Sometimes he
совсем
would
как
cry and
обычный
sometimes
ребенок.
laugh, just
Он
like a child,
то
and while
принимался
so
плакать, то
doing, he would
заливался
appear like a
смехом
lion
и
cub.
при этом был
While
похож на
cursing
маленького
the very
львенка.
beautiful bulls, the Lord, who was
Отправляясь
the
пасти
reservoir of all opulence
красавцев-быков,
and fortune,
Господь,
used to
источник
blow his
процветания
flute,
и
and
счастья,
thus he
играл на флейте, вселяя
enlivened
радость
his
в
faithful
сердца
followers, the
своих
coward boys.
неизменных спутников,
The
мальчиков-пастушков.
great wizards who were able to assume any
Чтобы
form
убить
were
Кришну,
engaged by the
Камса,
king of
царь
Bhoja
Броджи,
Kamsa to kill
посылал к
Krishna,
нему
but
одного за
in the
другим
course of
великих
his pastimes
волшебников
the
и
Lord killed
чародеев,
them
способных
as easily
принимать
as
любой облик.
a child
Однако Господь во
breaks
время
dolls.
своих игр убивал их с
The
такой же
inhabitants
легкостью,
of,
с
of
какой ребенок
Vrindavana were
ломает игрушки.
perplexed by great difficulties because a
Жители
certain portion
Вриндавана
of the Yamuna
растерялись
was
и не
poisoned by the
знали,
chief of
что
the
предпринять,
reptiles,
когда
Kalia.
царь,
The Lord chastised the snake fiend
пресмыкающийся Калия,
within the water and drove him
отравив
away,
воду в
and after
заводе
coming out
Емуны.
of the river, he
Прыгнув в
caused
реку,
the cows
Господь
to
наказал
drink the
повелителя
water and
змей
proved that
и
the
заставил
water
его
was
убраться
again
оттуда. Выйдя
in
на
its
берег,
natural
он
state.
дал коровам
The
напиться из
Supreme Lord
реки,
Krishna
и
desired
все
to
убедились,
utilize
что
the
вода в ней
opulent
снова стала
financial
чистой
strength
и
of
вкусной.
Maharajananda for
Верховный
worship of the
Господь
cows,
Кришна
and also he
хотел
wanted to give a
употребить
lesson to
огромное
Indra, the king of
богатство
heaven.
Махараджи
Thus,
Нанды
he
на
advised his father
поклонение
to perform
коровам
worship of
и заодно проучить Индру,
Go,
царя небес.
or the
Поэтому он посоветовал
pasturing
своему
land,
отцу
and the cows with
совершить
the help
с
of
помощью
learned
ученых
brahmanas.
браманов обряд поклонения Го,
Also, by Vidura, king
пастбищам и
Indra,
коровам.
his honor having been
О
exalted,
рассудительный
poured
Видура,
water
царь Индра,
incessantly on
честь которого
Vrindavana,
была
and thus
задета,
the
наслал на
inhabitants of
Вриндаван
Vraja, the
проливные
land of
дожди,
cows,
и
were
жителей
greatly
Враджа,
distressed. But
земли и коров,
the compassionate Lord Krishna
охватило
saved them
смятение.
from danger
Однако
with his
милосердный Господь
pastime
Кришна
umbrella with Govardhan
защитил
Hill.
их от
In the
опасности,
third season
подняв
of the
над
year,
ними
the Lord
свой
enjoyed
игрушечный
as the
зонтик,
central
холм
beauty
Гавардхана.
of the assembly
С
of women
наступлением
by
третьего
attracting
времени
them with
года
his pleasure songs
Господь
in an
наслаждался
autumn night
обществом юных дев,
brightened by
украшая
moonshine.
собой их хоровод и пленяя их волшебными звуками своих
The
песен,
end of
которые разливались в тиши, озаренной лунным светом осенней ночи. Конец 2 главы.
second chapter. Chapter 3.
Глава 3. Игры Господа
The
за
Lord's
пределами
pastimes out
Вриндавана.
of Vrindavana. Sri Uddhava
Удава
said,
сказал:
Thereafter Lord
затем
Krishna
Господь Кришна и
went to
Баладева
Mathura city with Sri Baladeva and to please their parents, the dragged Kamsa, the leader of public enemies, down from his throne and killed him, pulling him along the ground with great strength. The Lord knows all the Vedas with their different branches simply by hearing them once from his teacher Sandipani Muni, whom he rewarded by bringing back his dead son from the region of Yamaloka. Attracted by the beauty and fortune of Rukmini, the daughter of King Bhishmaka, many great princes and kings assembled to marry her. But Lord Krishna, stepping over the other hopeful candidates, carried her away as his own share, as Garuda carried away nectar. By subduing 7 bulls whose noses were not pierced, the Lord achieved the hand of Princess Nagnadjiti in the open competition to select your bridegroom. Although the Lord was victorious, his competitors asked the hands of the princes, and thus there was a fight. Well equipped with weapons, the Lord killed or wounded all of them, but he himself was not hurt. Just to please his dear wife, the Lord brought back the Parijata thief from heaven, just as an ordinary husband would do. But Indra, the king of heaven, induced by his wife's handpicked as was, ran after the Lord with full force to fight him. Narakasura, the son of Dharitri, the earth tried to grasp the whole sky, and for this he was killed by the Lord in a fight. His mother then prayed to the Lord. This led to the return of the kingdom to the son of Narakasura, and thus the Lord entered the house of the demon. There is in the house of the demon all the princes kidnapped by Narakasura at once became seeing the Lord, the friend of their distress. They looked upon him with eagerness, joy, and shyness, and offered to be his wives. All those princesses were lodged in different apartments, and the Lord simultaneously assumed different bodily expansions exactly matching each and every princess. He accepted their hands in perfect ritual by his internal potency. Just to expand himself according to his transcendental features, the Lord begot in each and every one of them 10 offspring with exactly his own qualities. Kalayavana, the king of Magadha and Shalva, attacked the city of Madura, but when the city was encircled by their soldiers, the Lord refrained from killing them personally, just to show the power of his own men. Of kings like Shambhara, Dvivida, Bana, Mura, Balvala, and many other demons such as Dantavakra's son, he killed himself, and some he caused to be killed by others, Sri Baladeva and Satran. Then of Vidura, the Lord caused all the kings, both the and those on the side of your fighting Nevius, to be killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. All those kings were so great and strong that the earth seemed to shake as they traversed the warfield. Duryodhana was bereft of his fortune and duration of the life because of the intricacy of ill advice given by Karna, Dushasana, and Saubala. When he lay on the ground with the followers, his sight broken. Although he was powerful, the Lord was not happy to see the sin. After the end of the battle of the Kurukshetra, the Lord said, abatement of the earth's great burden, 18 Akshaunis has now been effected with the help of Drona and Bhima. But what is this? There is still the great strength of the Yadu dynasty born of myself, which may be a more unbearable burden. When they quarrel among themselves, influenced by intoxication, with their eyes red like copper because of drinking madu, then only will they disappear. Otherwise, it will not be possible. On my disappearance, this incident will take place. Lord Sri Krishna, thus thinking to himself, established Maharaj Yudhishthira in the position of supreme control of the world in order to show the ideal of administration on the path of piety. The embryo of Puru's descendant, begotten by the great hero Abhimanyu in the womb of Uttara, his wife, was burned by the weapon of the son of Drona, but later he was again protected by the Lord. The Supreme Lord induced the son of Dharma to perform 3 horse sacrifices, and Maharaj Yudhishthira, constantly following Krishna, the personality of Godhead, protected and enjoyed the earth, assisted by his younger brothers. Simultaneously, the personality of Godhead enjoyed life in the city of Dwaraka, strictly in conformity with the Vedic customs of society. He was situated in detachment and enunciated by the Sankhya system of philosophy. He was there in his transcendental body, the residence of the goddess of fortune, with his usual gentle and sweetly smiling face, his nectarian words, and his flawless character. The Lord enjoyed his pastimes both in this world and in other worlds, high planets, specifically in the association of the Yadu dynasty. At leisure hours, often by night, he enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women. The Lord was thus engaged in household life for many years, but at last his detachment from ephemeral sex life was fully manifested. Every living entity is controlled by a supernatural force, and thus his sense enjoyment is also under the control of that supernatural force. No one therefore can put his faith in Lord Krishna's transcendental sensitivities, but one who has become a devotee of the Lord by rendering devotional service. Once upon a time, great sages were made angry by the sporting activities of the princely descendants of the Yadu and Bhoja dynasties, and thus as the Lord, the sages cursed them. A few months passed, and then, bewildered by Krishna, all the descendants of Vrishni, Bhoja, and Anghaka, who were incarnations of demigods, went to Prabhasta, while those who were eternal devotees of the Lord did not leave but remained in Dwaraka. After arriving there, all of them took baths, and with the water of this place of pilgrimage they offered their respects to the forefathers, demigods, and great sages, and thus satisfied them. They gave cows to the Brahmanas in royal charity. The Brahmanas were not only given well-fed cows in charity, but also gold coins, bedding, clothing, animal skins, seeds, blankets, horses, elephants, girls, and sufficient land for maintenance. Thereafter, they offered the Brahmanas highly delicious foodstuffs, first offered to the personality of Godhead, and offered their respectful obeisances by touching their heads to the ground. They lived perfectly by protecting the cows and the Brahmanas. The end of chapter 3. Chapter 4. Vidura approaches Maitreya. Thereafter, all of them, the descendants of Vrishni and Bhoja, being permitted by the Brahmanas, partook of the remnants of prasada and also drank liquor made of rice. By drinking, they all became delirious and bereft of knowledge. They touched the cores of each other's hearts with harsh words. As by the friction of bamboos destruction takes place, so also at sunset, by the interaction of the poles of intoxication, all their minds became unbalanced and destruction took place. The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, after foreseeing the end of his family, by his internal potency went to the bank of the river Sarasvati, sipped water, and sat down underneath a tree. The Lord is the vanquisher of the besetted of one who is surrendered unto him. Thus he who desired to destroy his family told me previously to go to Badarikashramam. Yet, in spite of my knowing his desire to destroy the dynasty of Arindama Vidura, I followed him because it was impossible for me to be a separation from the lotus feet of the Master. Thus following, I saw my patron and Master Lord Shri Krishna sitting alone and deeply thinking, taking shelter on the bank of the river Sarasvati, although he is the shelter of the goddess of fortune.
хотя сам является пристанищем богини просветания. Несмотря на свой черный цвет тела,
the Lord's body is blackish, but is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and very, very beautiful. His eyes are always peaceful, and they are reddish like the rising morning sun. I could immediately recognize him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his four hands, different symbolic representations, and yellow silk garment. The Lord was sitting taking rest against a young banyan tree, with his right lotus foot on his left thigh, and although he had left all household comforts, he looked quite cheerful in that posture. At that time, after traveling in many parts of the world, Maitreya, a great devotee of the Lord and a friend and well-wisher of the great sage, Krishna Dvayapayana Vyasa, reached that spot out of his own perfect accord. Maitreya Muni was greatly attached to him, the Lord, and he was listening in a pleasing attitude, with his shoulder lowered, with a smile and a particular glance upon me, having allowed me to rest. The Lord spoke as follows: O Vasu, I know from within your mind what you desire in the days of your when the Vasus and other demigods responsible for expanded the universal affairs performed sacrifices. You particularly desire to achieve my attestation. This is very difficult for others to obtain, but I award it unto you. O honest one, your present life is the last and the supermost, because in this term of life you have been awarded my ultimate favor. Now you can go to my transcendental abode Vaikuntha by leaving this universe of conditioned living entities. Your visit to me in this lonely place, because of your pure and unflinching devotional service, is a great boon for you. O Uddhava, in the lotus millennium, in the days of yore, at the beginning of the creation, I spoke unto Brahma, who is situated on the lotus that grows out of my navel, about my transcendental glories, which the great sages described as Srimad Bhagavatam. Uddhava Sadhura, when I was thus favored at every moment by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and addressed by him with great affection, my words failed in tears, and the hairs on my body erupted. After smearing my tears, I with folded hands spoke like this: O my Lord, devotees who engage in the transcendental loving service of your lotus feet have no difficulty in achieving anything within the realm of the four principles of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. But, O Great One, as far as I am concerned, I have preferred only to engage in the loving service of your lotus feet. My Lord, even the learned sages become disturbed in their intelligence when they see that your greatness engages in fruitful work, although you are free from all desires, that you have taken birth, although you are unborn, that you flee out of fear of the enemy and take shelter in a forest, although you are the control of invincible time, and that you enjoy household life surrounded by many women, although you enjoy in yourself. O my Lord, your eternal self is never divided by the influence of time, and there is no limitation to your perfect knowledge. Thus you were sufficiently able to consult with yourself, and yet you called upon me for consultation, as if bewildered, although you are never bewildered, and this act of yours bewilders me. My Lord, kindly explain to us if you think us competent to receive it, that transcendental knowledge which gives enlightenment about yourself and which you explained before to Brahmaji. When I thus express my sincere, heartfelt desires unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the lotus-eyed Lord instructed me about his transcendental situation. I have studied the path of understanding self-knowledge from my spiritual master, the Personality of Godhead, and thus, after circumambulating him, placed very much a grief due to separation. My dear Vidura, now I am mad for what pleasure of seeing him, and just to mitigate this, I am now proceeding through Bhagavad-gita in the Himalayas for separation, as I have been instructed by him. There in Bhagavad-gita, the personality of Godhead, in his incarnation as the sages Nara and Narayana, has been undergoing great penance since time immemorial for the welfare of all amiable living entities. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, after hearing from Uddhava all about the annihilation of his friends and relatives, the learned Vidura pacified his overwhelming bereavement by dint of his transcendental knowledge. While Uddhava, the chief and most confidential among the devotees of the Lord, was going away, Vidura in affection and confidence questioned him. Vidura said, O Uddhava, because of Vishnu, the Lord, wander in the interest of serving others, it is quite fit that you kindly describe the self-knowledge with which you have been enlightened by the Lord Himself. Sri Uddhava said, you may take lessons from the great learned sage Maitreya, who is nearby and who is worshipable for reception of transcendental knowledge. He was directly instructed by the personality of Godhead while he was about to quit this mortal world. Shukadeva Goswami said, O king, after thus discussing with Vidura the transcendental name, qualities, etc., on the bank of the Yamuna, Uddhava was overwhelmed with great affliction. He passed the night as if it were a moment, and thereafter he went away. The king inquired, at the end of the pastimes of the Lord of the Three Worlds, Sri Krishna, and after the disappearance of the members of the Vishnu and Bodhi dynasties, who were the best of the great commanders, why did Uddhava alone remain? Shukadeva Goswami replied, my dear king, the cursing of the Brahmanas was only a plea, but the actual fact was the supreme desire of the Lord. He wanted to disappear from the face of the earth after dispatching his excessively numerous family members. He thought to himself as follows: "Now I shall leave the vision of this mundane world, and I see that Uddhava, the foremost of my devotees, is the only one who can be directly entrusted with knowledge about me. Uddhava is not inferior to me in any way because he is never affected by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he may remain in this world in order to disseminate specific knowledge of the personality of Godhead." Shukadeva Goswami informed the king that Uddhava, being thus instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of all Vedic knowledge and the spiritual master of the three worlds, reached the pilgrimage site of Badarikashrama and engaged himself there in trance to satisfy the Lord. Vidura also heard from Uddhava about the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, the Supersoul in the mortal world, which is a subject matter sought after with a great perseverance by the great sages. The Lord's glorious act and his acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anyone other than his devotees to understand, and for the beast they are simply a mental disturbance.
Трансцендентные формы, являя в этом бренном мире свои чудесные игры. Животных же деяния Господа только раздражают возбуждение их.
Understanding that he was remembered by Lord Krishna while hearing these words, Vidura began to cry loudly, overwhelmed by the ecstasy of love. After passing the bank of the river Yamuna, Vidura, the self-realized soul, reached the bank of the Ganges, where the great sage Maitreya was situated.
Туда, где остановился великий мудрец Майтрея.
The end of the 4th chapter.
Конец 4 главы.
Chapter 5. Vidura's talks with Maitreya. Shukadeva Goswami said, Vidura, the best among the Kuru dynasty, who was perfect in devotion and service to the Lord, thus reached the source of the celestial Ganges river, Haridwar, where Maitreya, the great fathomless learned sage of the world, was seated. Vidura, who was perfect in gentleness and satisfied in transcendence, inquired from him.
Отличавшийся исключительным благородством и находивший удовлетворение в трансцендентном, обратился к нему с такими словами.
Vidura said, O great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities to attain happiness, but one finds neither situation nor the mitigation of distress. On the contrary, one is only aggravated by such activities. Please, therefore, give us directions on how one should live for real happiness. O my Lord, great philanthropic souls travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. Therefore, O great sage, please give me instruction on the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, so that he who is situated in the heart of everyone can be pleased to impart from within knowledge of the absolute truth in terms of the ancient Vedic principles delivered only to those who are purified by the process of devotional service.
Запечатлено в древних ведических заповедях, доступ к которым получает
O great sage, kindly know the personality of Godhead, who is the independent, desireless Lord of the three controller of all energies accepts incarnations and creates the cosmic manifestation with perfectly arranged regulative principles for its maintenance. He lies down on his own heart spread in the form of the sky, and thus placing the whole creation in that space spans himself into many living entities which are manifested as different species of life. He doesn't have to endeavor for his maintenance, because he is the master of all mystic powers and the proprietor of everything. Thus he is distinct from the living entities. Human may narrate also about the auspicious characteristics of the Lord in his different incarnations for the welfare of the twice born, the cows and the demigods. Our minds are never satisfied completely, although we continuously hear of his transcendental activities. The Supreme King of all kings has created different planets and places of habitation where living entities are situated in terms of the modes of nature and work, and he has created their different kings and rulers. O chief, among the Brahmanas, please also describe how Narayana, the creator of the universe and the self-sufficient Lord, has differently created the nature's activities, form, features, and different living creatures.
Он же поставил над ними различных царей и правителей. О лучший из браманов, расскажи нам также о том, каким образом Нараяна, Творец Вселенной и самодостаточный Господь,
O my Lord, I have repeatedly heard about this high and lower status of human society from the mouth of Vyasadeva, and I am quite situated with all these lesser subject matters, and they have not satisfied me with the nectar of topics about Krishna. Whose human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by great sages and devotees? Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affection simply by entering the holes of one's ears. Your friend, the great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa has already described the transcendental qualities of the Lord in his great work, the Mahabharata. But the whole idea is to draw the attention of the mass of people to Krishna Katha, Bhagavad-gita, through the strong affinity for hearing-minded topics. For one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards things. Such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without delay.
Постоянно памятуя о лотосных стопах Господа Кришны,
O sage, persons who, because of their sinful activities, are averse to the topics of transcendence and thus ignorant of the purpose of the Mahabharata, Bhagavad-gita, are pitied by the pitiable. I also pity them, because I see how their duration of life is spoiled by eternal time while they involve themselves in presentation of philosophical speculation, theoretical ultimate goals of life, and different modes of ritual. O Maitreya, O friend of the distress, the glories of the Supreme Lord can alone do good for people all over the world. Therefore, just as bees collect honey from flowers, kindly describe the essence of all topics, the topics of the Lord. Kindly chant all those superhuman transcendental activities of the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead, who accepted incarnations fully equipped with all potency for the full manifestation and maintenance of the cosmic creation. Shukadeva Goswami said, the great sage Maitreya Muni, after honoring Vidura very greatly, began to speak at Vidura's request for the greatest welfare of all people. Shri Maitreya said, O Vidura, all glory unto you. You have inquired from me of the greatest of all goodness, and thus you have shown your mercy both to the world and to me, because your mind is always absorbed in thoughts of the transcendence. O Vidura, it is not at all wonderful that you have so accepted the Lord without deviation of thought, for you were born from the semen of Vyasadeva. I know that you are now Vidura due to the cursing of Mandavya Muni, and that formerly you were King Yamaraja, the great controller of living entities, after their death. You were begotten by the son of Satyavati Vyasadeva in the capped rifle of his brother. Your good self is one of the eternal associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for whose sake the Lord, while going back to his abode, left instruction with me. I shall therefore describe to you the pastimes by which the Personality of Godhead extends his transcendental potency for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of cosmic world as they occur one after another. The personality of God, the master of all living entities, existed prior to the creation as one without a second. It is by his will only that creation is made possible, again everything merges in him. This Supreme Self is symbolized by the Lord, the undisputed proprietor of everything, was the only seer. The cosmic manifestation was not present at that time, and thus he felt imperfect without his plenary and separated parts and parcels. The material energy was dormant, whereas the internal potency was manifested. The Lord is the seer, and the external energy which is seen works as both cause and effect in the cosmic manifestation. O greatly fortunate Vidura, this external energy is known as Maya, or illusion, and through her agency only is the entire material manifestation made possible. The Supreme Living Being, in his feature, the transcendental portion incarnation, who is the Lord's plenary expansion, impregnates of three modes, and thus by the influence of eternal time, the living entities appear. Thereafter, influenced by the interactions of eternal time, the supreme sum total of matter, called the Mahatattva, became manifested, and in this Mahatattva, the unalloyed goodness, the Supreme Lord sowed the seeds of universal manifestation out of his own body. Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as the reservoir of the would-be entities. The Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates a false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. Mahatattva, or the great causal truth, transforms false ego, which is manifested in three phases: cause, effect, and the doer. All such activities are on the mental plane and are based on the material elements, gross senses, and mental speculation. The false ego is represented in three different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The false ego is transformed into mind by interaction with the mode of goodness. All the demigods who control the phenomenal world are also products of the same principle, namely the interaction of false ego and the mode of goodness. The senses are certainly products of the mode of passion in false ego, and therefore philosophical, speculative knowledge and fruitive activities are predominantly products of the mode of passion. The sky is a product of sound, and sound is a transformation of egoistic ignorance. In other words, the sky is a symbolic representation of the Supreme Soul. Thereafter, the personality of God glanced over the sky, partly mixed with eternal time and external energy, and thus developed the touch sensation from which the air in the sky was produced. Thereafter, the extremely powerful air interacting with the sky generated the form of sense perception, and the perception of form transformed into electricity, the light to see the world. When electricity was surcharged in the air and was glanced over by the Supreme at that time by a mixture of eternal time and external energy, there occurred the creation of water and taste. Thereafter, the water produced from electricity was glanced over by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and mixed with eternal time and external energy. Thus, it was transformed into the earth, which is qualified smell, or gentle one, of all the physical elements beginning from the sky down to the earth. All the inferior and superior qualities are due only to the final touch of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The controlling deities of all the above-mentioned physical elements are empowered expansions of Lord Vishnu. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his parts and parcels. Because they were entrusted with different functions of universal duties and were unable to perform them, they offered fascinating prayers to the Lord as follows. The demigod said, O Lord, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered souls, protecting them from all the miseries of material existence. All the sages under that shelter throw of all material miseries. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. O Father, O Lord, O Personality of Godhead, the living entities in the material world can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the three kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge, and we also thus take shelter of them. Feet of the Lord are by themselves the shelter of all places of pilgrimage. The great clear-minded sages carried by the wings of the Vedas always search after the nest of your lotus-like face. Some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of the best of rivers, Ganges, which can deliver one from all sinful reactions. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment one becomes pacified. He must therefore take shelter of your lotus feet. O Lord, you assume incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation, and therefore we of your lotus feet, because they always award remembrance and courage to your devotees. O Lord, persons who are entangled by undesirable eagerness for the temporary body and kinsmen, and who are bound by thoughts of mine and I, are unable to see your lotus feet, although your lotus feet are situated within their own bodies. But let us take shelter of your lotus feet. O great Supreme Lord, offensive persons whose internal vision has been too affected by external materialistic activities cannot see your lotus feet, but they are seen by your pure devotees, whose one and only aim is to transcendently enjoy activities. O Lord, persons who, because of their serious attitude, attain the stage of enlightened devotional service, achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, and attain the Vaikuntha Loka in the spiritual sky simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. Others, who are pacified by means of transcendental self-realization and have conquered over the modes of nature by dint of strong power and knowledge, also enter into you. But for them there is much pain. The devotee simply discharges devotional service and thus feels no such pain. O original person, we are their form, but yours only. Although we are your creatures, we are born one after another under the influence of the three modes of nature, and for this reason we are separated in action. Therefore, after the creation, we could not act concertedly for your transcendental pleasure. O unborn one, please enlighten us regarding the ways and means by which we can offer you all enjoyable grains and commodities, so that both we and living entities in this world can maintain ourselves without disturbance and can easily accumulate the necessities of life, both for you and for ourselves. You are the original person, founder of all the demigods and the idols of different gradations, yet you are the oldest and are unchanged. O Lord, you have no source of superior. You have impregnated the external energy with the semen of the total living entities, yet O Supreme Self, please give us, who are created in the beginning from the Mahatattva, the total cosmic energy, your kind directions on how we shall act. Kindly award us your perfect knowledge and potency so that we can render your service in the different departments of subsequent creation. The end of the chapter.
И надели могуществом, чтобы мы могли служить Тебе в различных сферах будущего творения. Конец 5 главы.
Okay, let's make a stop. Okay, now this morning reading, I wake up from the night, or we start to absorb in the Leelas with Lord and his devotees. Maitreya Muni starts to say about creation of the world and then starts to involve in the activities of the Lord. And we should difference from all this try to find here a surrendering our devotion, how we should be a devotee. Okay, have a good day. See you next time.